God has a wonderful plan for your life. It sounds like a great thing, doesn't it? It sounds like a great sentence to say to somebody. And many of us have been guilty, probably, of using that sentence to try and win over unbelievers, to encourage even those that feel discouraged. And we say to them, God has a wonderful plan for your life. Come to Jesus. God has a wonderful plan for your life. And these people hear that sentence and they believe that when they come to Jesus, that everything will be okay, that their life will suddenly be automatically changed from what it was to being absolutely positive, and their life will somehow be perfect. And this just simply isn't true. And it is a statement that many churches have used, and it has caused many saints to fall away from the faith, feeling discouraged when their life becomes challenged, when they face certain issues in their life. They begin to think back to that sentence that they were told, God has a wonderful plan for your life. And they begin to become bitter, they become angry with God, because quite frankly, they was not told the truth. They was sold a lie. Sometimes that lie has been told to them, not on purpose, but just through not knowing the scriptures, and quite frankly, really and truly not knowing God properly. Telling someone that God has a wonderful plan for their life, especially an unbeliever, just isn't the truth. It isn't biblical, and it is far from the scriptures and what the scriptures actually say about what God has planned for us. You see, we see from scripture that, the disciples who followed Jesus, they had many issues that they had to face. They faced persecution. They died a terrible death. And, we can see from tradition that, the apostles and early evangelists were crucified, they were beheaded, they were dragged to death, they were clubbed to death, they were speared to death, they were hanged, they were persecuted beyond belief. And so, was it that God did not have a wonderful plan for their life? No. God's plan for their life was to reach the lost. God's plan for their life was to seek God, to have a relationship with God. God's plan for them was not to have a wonderful life. And so we need to be careful when we're ministering to people. We need to be so careful that we are not selling them this false doctrine of a perfect Christianity. And so when we are ministering the gospel to unbelievers, we need to be looking at how Jesus shared the gospel. We really need to be looking and zooming in on the pattern that he gave us, the style that he left for us to follow. And sadly, many people only come to Jesus to have their problems solved. They come to have their marriage problems solved, their alcohol problems solved, their drug problems solved, without the truth being told to them. They expect to come into accepting Jesus, and for everything to just suddenly disappear, for Jesus to take everything away, when the reality is that it just doesn't work like that. They haven't been told that they'll have to work at it, that they'll have to have a relationship with God, which involves working through those issues, being delivered, and being able to face their demons and face certain truths that maybe they don't want to face in their lives. They're not told this reality. And Stephen was cruelly stoned to death for his faith. James told his brethren to count it all joy when you fall into various trials, James chapter 1 verse 2, and he was murdered with a sword. John the Baptist also felt the steel of persecution. And down throughout the ages, you can see where Christians have been hated, persecuted, thrown to the lions, beheaded, and like John Huss, for example, even burnt at the stake for the sake of the gospel. So all this is consistent with scriptures, admonishing us to count the cost of following Jesus. Jesus said, if they persecuted me, they will also persecute you. John chapter 15. He also said, in this world you will have tribulation. John chapter 16. Jesus didn't shield Saul of Tarsus from what was in store for him as a Christian. Instead, Jesus said that he would show him how many things he must suffer for my name's sake. Acts chapter 9 verse 16. Because telling people that God has a wonderful plan for their lives, it isn't being honest about the realities of life. Examine the book of Acts and see if you can find any of the disciples telling sinners that, he had a wonderful plan for their life. And if there's no precedent for this approach in scripture, the question isn't why not use it, but why even consider it in the first place? Why would we not be careful to follow the pattern given for us in scripture by Jesus Christ on something as important as the salvation of eternal souls? And so I want to leave you with these final thoughts. Those who look to the cross as a token of God's love will never doubt his steadfast devotion to them, regardless of what's going on in their lives. But those who come to Christ seeking a wonderful life will think their happiness is evidence of God's love, and therefore when trials come along, when tribulation comes and their happiness leaves, they may think that God has left them, or even worse, that he doesn't even exist. Every time we witness to someone, we should examine our motives. Do we love the sinner enough to make sure that what we are telling him is the true message of Jesus Christ? That what we are telling him is correct biblically and not right in our own eyes or in our own opinions, because that is very dangerous. It's very dangerous indeed. And many churches, sadly, they promote this false Jesus, this Jesus that solves all your problems without there being any effort on your part, without there being any work on our behaviors or any work on our on our attitudes, on our mindset. And it's just simply selling people the wrong Jesus. It is presenting to them the wrong Jesus and not the Jesus of the Bible. And so we have to be very, very careful. So I pray that this video has given you food for thought. And I pray that this video encourages you when you are ministering to the unbeliever and the sinner. And remember, Jesus is the light of this world. God bless you.
It says this: our God is awesome. He can move mountains. Keep me in the valley